Dude, I wish I had my AirPods.
All right, my name is Nick Rebholz. I'm the Full Circle Senior Counselor for the Kansas City chapter. Um, I've been working for Full Circle for about a little over 2 years now. And so my primary job is I meet with kids and their families, talk with them about getting sober. Full Circle is a 12-step youth at risk support group. And what we do is individual counseling, social events, 12-step meetings, and support group management. And so what we do is try and help people get sober between the ages of 13 to about 25 or so. Um, and so a lot of people that we work with are teenagers and their families. And, we've got with us today a, a young adult by the name of Sam Shoemaker. Sam, let people know how old you are. Let's start there.
I'm 16 years old. I got sober when I was 14.
Awesome.
Been sober for about a year and 6 months.
Awesome. And then also with us is the program director of Full Circle, AJ Cresswell. So AJ, you want to give us a little bit of background on you?
Yeah, I've been running Full Circle for, I guess now I've been the director for almost 2 years, but I've been a part of the program for almost 6, and live out in Tempe, Arizona, which is where our flagship Full Circle program is. And we started shortly after I got here. We opened in Kansas City, Missouri, and just last year in 2019 opened in Denver, Colorado, and looking to open here this year in 2020 in Atlanta. So
Awesome. Well, yeah, so, basically what we'll do is I'll ask you guys some questions. I'll kind of be the moderator for this and kind of talk about, what was, your experience getting sober, helping other young people get sober, kind of what that looked like. There'll be a couple different questions in there. So let's start with you, Sam. So let's start first with how did you get into drugs?
It was really kind of just like mix of curiosity and like I kind of wanted people to see me as the kid who does a lot of drugs. I don't know why feeling, but in some way it kind of was. And it was like, okay, so my parents don't want me to do this, so I'm gonna do it. And like just like the whole like I don't really know the word, but kind of kind of like that like like really accepted by a group of people.
Here, wait,
For,
hang on, Sam. AJ, will you mute yourself while he's talking?
so like
Go ahead.
uh being accepted by like a group of people who don't really care what you're doing, um and like people that are giving you this thing that makes you feel good, that's kind of just like really what drew me to it.
Gotcha. So it just had more to do with kind of social acceptance, but also it felt good, and was that kind of the main deal?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever did it, it was kind of just like it just felt right. Um, and it was kind of what I was looking for, like where I was at the point in my life, to where I was using it was like I had found like a missing piece in my like in myself because like from a young age like I've never been fully like happy in that kind of way, like I've never really felt anything like that good. Um and it was like for the first time I felt like I was different than I normally was, like something that I could get away from the person that I don't like and be this person that I aspired to be when I was using.
Yeah. So it's kind of like finding the missing puzzle piece that made you complete.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. So what, from there, how did you get into drugs? Or sorry, not how did you get into drugs? Did you ever think that like you had a problem when you were really starting to get into it, right? Like when you started using regularly and all of that, was that like, did you know you had a problem, or was it something that you were kind of like, no, I really think I'm fine and I can get away with this, or, kind of what did that look like for you?
It was
Like,
more like I felt like I was fine because I mean I started using when I was like 12, um, and it was more of like just this. Okay, so this is what life is like now for me. Like I'm just gonna get high and everything's gonna be okay. And that's just kind of how I saw it, and it was like it hits this point where it's like, okay, so I need, I like my brain was starting to think about it as, okay, so this is what I need to do so I can get high. This is what I need to do, like, so I can get money to go get high, or like stuff like that. And it's like my entire life was just based around me trying to get money or me trying to find drugs to get high. Um, and it really just kind of like spun me out into this like weird spot where it was like there was nothing else that I was thinking about besides when am I going to smoke weed later, or like when am I going to be able to buy drugs. It's kind of like just
so it's kind of all you thought about. Like that's all you wanted to do.
yeah, and it kind of like I never really saw it as a problem. It was kind of just like it was there, like because like my whole entire world was like completely um like what's the word? Completely like taken with like the idea of like getting high, and like I couldn't ever think about anything else besides like how am I gonna make myself feel good? Like um and it was never really brought up as like okay, I have a problem. I was like, okay, this is just how it is normally. Like because I didn't really know any better. Um and
So,
it took a few years to really realize that I did.
gotcha. So, obviously, you being in full circle and all of that. I mean, me and AJ kind of know your story and all of that. But so for everyone else, what primarily were you using? Was it kind of an array of different drugs, or was it kind of specifically one or two? I mean, what did that look like for you at
I
14?
mean, at 14, before I got sober, it was kind of just a mix of Um, I'd like to say like just smoking weed pretty much and drinking a little bit, and then like venturing off into like other avenues, and then kind of like cutting myself off that because I was like, whoa, this is kind of like this is scary. This is not something that I want to do because it just
Right.
like felt like too like I was too far gone at that point. So if I were to like go take this pill that is known for making people not be able to feel anything like emotionally. Like if I go take that, like, and it was just kind of like this feeling of just like, well, it was just too much for me to not be able to feel that emotion at the same time, but also it just felt like I was disappearing in a way, and it just didn't feel like something that I wanted to keep doing. So mainly it was
Gotcha.
just like weed and acid and stuff like that.
So did you, especially since you were just kind of smoking weed, did you think that you were just kind of like every other kid, like,
Oh yeah,
people who use drugs, like that, wow, everybody smokes weed, so what's the big deal?
definitely. And I mean, it's a lot less noticeable because like eighth grade, like going into freshman year, it was kind of like this weird period where everybody's just kind of like trying to figure themselves out. And that's pretty much what all high school is. And it's like the people that don't have it all figured out yet are the people that you see like falling behind and like in the way of just like getting high and stuff like that. And like in my area, it's not like common that you really see a lot of that. And it like going into like freshman year, it's kind of just like I just felt like my life was more accelerated from like all the stuff that I was like going through at the time before I started getting high, and it just kind of felt like I was ahead of everybody else. And like when I started using, I didn't really notice that people my age or people around the age that I was were like really using, because they didn't really see it as the thing that I saw it as. But like it was more so getting sober where like I saw like the friends that I like probably would have never guessed would get into drugs, started getting into drugs, and it was just kind of like this thing where it's like, um, I'm so glad that I'm not doing that anymore, and I'm so glad that I got out of that. So what can I do to help other people get out of that kind of thing? And it was kind of like how it really like came to me that it really is a pretty common thing now, and it just I just didn't feel like anybody else when I was younger. And it's like, what if I was still getting high at this time? Would I have gotten sober? Like it's just kind of stuff that I think about.
Gotcha. So AJ, from a I guess counselor's perspective, right? In terms of, obviously hearing Sam's story, smoking pot, all of that, what would you say for, I guess really, whether it's kids or parents, in terms of just having an understanding of what marijuana does, because obviously it's way more widely acceptable today than it ever has been, right? And there's a lot of people who are huge advocates for that. So what would you say in terms of, somebody that's using marijuana, do they have a leg to stand on for the argument of, everybody's using it, it's not that big of a deal, all of that, or what would your thoughts be with that?
Right. I mean, probably the biggest thing that we tell parents all the time is that there is I think the majority of parents struggle with the idea that, oh, it's just a phase my kid's going through. Maybe they drink in high school or smoke pot too, so they're kind of like, like I grew out of it, it's fine. They'll figure it out. And, there's a real risk in that way of thinking, primarily because there's a lot of teenagers today that don't pull out of it for a couple different reasons. I think probably one of the biggest reasons is that smoking pot's become more and more socially acceptable. I mean, in many states, it's considered medicine, right? So there's already that message that's getting transmitted to our young people that, not only is it okay, it actually helps. It helps things, it cures things, it eases pain, or whatever the spinoff is. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, we're as a society continuously telling our young people, that it's okay to get high, to change the way they feel, to change their perspective and or their perception of things. And so that's a big one. I mean, the peer pressure has always been there, I mean, that's always been a thing. Rock stars, actors, actresses, so many people in the world that are famous and have a pretty big platform get high and make it look awesome. And so, yeah, there's a reality to, well, oh man, if I want to get that or be there or, make all this money, or I want to party like these guys party, then that's just kind of what I need to do. The biggest
So
thing that I tell parents all the time, I'll wrap it up with this, is that, it's to me, it's not worth the risk. To me, there's no such thing as being too early or too proactive, as far as early intervention goes, because worst case scenario, catch your kid, bring them into counseling, and they don't need that level of counseling, or that there's really not maybe this problem going on. But the reality is that you just communicated your love for them by saying, hey, I'm not okay with you getting high. I'm not okay with you taking that kind of risk with your life and with your future. So I think that's the message that you send as a parent. Um, it's it's okay to not be the cool parent. It's good. So
yeah. Well, and so the follow-up question I had with that, obviously you were talking about kind of in the media how much that is just there, right? And it's just really, really prevalent, especially, with social media, whether it be Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. I mean, all these different platforms where, sometimes it's not even celebrities anymore. It's just these
right.
social media personalities, all that. How much do you think that plays a part in terms of just the wide acceptance of it all?
hmm Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like it's, so one of our steps at Full Circle, the second step says we found it necessary to stick with winners in order to grow, meaning people, places, and things. So for a teenager in particular, who they hang out with, who they're spending time with, what they're listening to and looking at really is a huge part, huge influence on how they live their life and what they kind of strive to do and to look forward to. And so, yeah, I mean, your brain is an amazing computer, and what you're putting in there, we have a saying that we use, and Nick, I know you're familiar, but the garbage in, garbage out, so the things that we're putting into our psyche, into our subconscious, into our brain, whether it's, music that just talks about getting high all the time, if it's, listening to one of the, I don't know, YouTubers or whoever that, is constantly getting high on their YouTube channel or talking about how awesome it is to trip acid. Like it's just that stuff is going into our psyche. And again, as a teenager, like Sam was touching on this, part of his motivation was rebellion, right? There's that piece of like, oh, you told me not to do that, or that it's bad for me, or it's going to hurt me. Well, no, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So Sam, I'll come back to you real quick with all of those pieces laid out, right? Like it sounds like ultimately you're saying you've got what, year and a half, 2 years sober, something like that, and you're kind of coming up on a pretty cool milestone. So with all of those pieces in play in terms of what we just talked about, in terms of how widely accepted pot is, how prevalent it is social media, all of that, what made you want to seek help? Like, what was it that really got you to a place of, okay, I think I need to go and get help and I'm willing to give that a shot? Because obviously, I know for a lot of people, that's not necessarily where they're at. It's kind of this, I'm going to continue to get around this or try and do whatever I can to make sure that I don't stop doing this. So what made you want to change and get help?
I feel like a lot of it was more like pressure from my parents. Because I mean, like I'm a like my like music is probably is probably one of the biggest parts of my life, and they were like, "We'll take that away from you," and it was kind of just like one of those things where like if I lost that, then what would I be anymore? Um, and like what really made me want to seek help is that I just felt like I was losing myself, and I knew that sooner or later I was going to end up in this situation that uh would mean life or death. Like there was times like that I felt like I was coming up on like, okay, I'm gonna do this drug and it's really dangerous, but I'm gonna do it anyway because because I want to not feel this feeling anymore, kind of thing. And it was like early on, like getting high was kind of just like, oh, okay, like this is cool, like I this makes me feel good, so I'm gonna keep doing it. But like once I hit this point where it was just like, okay, I need this to function and I need this to um help my problems go away. It just became like this um thing that was just not okay for me to deal with. And like I had gone through all these programs um like before I was getting high, of like how I can deal with my emotions in the best way, like instead of like doing stupid stuff. And then it just like turned into like, okay, so I don't need to listen to any of this anymore. I can just get high and everything's going to be okay. And then like once I had that like realization that that's all I needed to do, and it was like it just like sent me down this really bad like hole, just like, okay, I'm losing myself, like I don't know who I am anymore, and like I don't know if I'm going to like be able to do the things that I want to do with my life if I keep getting high. So I mean that's kind of like
Gotcha.
really what helped me.
Well, and so what did that look like for you? I mean, did you have to, you know, I guess the road to recovery, was that something that came through treatment programs? Was that, like basically what did you have to do to get sober and stay sober? Especially at, 14 years old in high school, again, all those things working against you, like what did that look like? Like what was your kind of strategy for really pulling that off?
It really was just like the full circle program in general, because what I was looking for getting high was this, okay, so this happiness, and then this group of people that I'm now associated with that I think care about me in that kind of way. But, and like, and it was just kind of like this thing that I thought was real, but it really wasn't. It's like, if I, like when I went into my first meeting, I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't want to be there. I thought, like, okay, I'm gonna get high right after this. Like, I'm just gonna do this to get my parents off my back so I can continue doing what I'm doing. And it was just kind of like I went into my first meeting, and like I feel like my entire life changed in the same fact. Like it felt like the first time I ever got high, and it was just this overwhelming feeling of just like, okay, so this is what I need to do to get what these people have, the happiness that these people have, the lives that these people have. All I need to do is just stop doing drugs and really start working on myself, because like now's the time to do it. Now's the time for me to really step up and grow, because if I keep doing this, it's not going to end well. Um, and it was like,
So it was kind of having something better than what you had before,
yeah, it
essentially.
was just like, it was more, it gave me what I was looking for through getting high. Um, and I noticed it instantly, and I never touched a drug again. I never drank ever again, like after that first meeting, because like it was just instantly just like this thing that I knew that this is where I needed to be in life. And like at this moment in that time, this is the place that I needed to be. And thinking about like what really helped me get through like that first year of high school with that first year of sobriety, like, because it was like my freshman year of high school too. And it was like, okay, I'm coming in second semester with this new lifestyle that I don't even know really what I'm doing at this point. And it's like, okay, so what if somebody asked me to come get high with them? What am I going to say? Like, what am I going to do? Like, what are people gonna think of me now that I'm getting sober? Like, are they gonna like not talk to me anymore? Are they not gonna think I'm cool anymore? And like that was the biggest thing. It was like losing that um social group of these people that I've known for years. And it's like, okay, so these people that I've known for like 2 months are controlling my life now. So what am I gonna do about it? Like, am I gonna get high? Am I gonna like stay sober? It was just kind of like that big question. And it was like I had the willpower myself not to get high. Like I had the self control, but like it just felt like I was like a ticking time bomb, where it was like, okay, there's so much drugs at my school. I could literally walk into the bathroom and get high. And it was just so easy for me to be able to do that. And it was like I I just constantly thought about it. It was something that like never really left my mind for a while, until like the opportunity came, and um, somebody had offered me to get high with them, and then I really just like had this realization that I can't be doing this anymore. Kind of like the same thing like with that, and it really just kind of stuck with me that I'm I'm better than that now. And it's like if I really want what these people have, like I'm gonna still try, you know?
Right. So, AJ, hearing all of that in terms of obviously somebody newly sober in high school, being a teenager, going back to school, and because at least from what it sounds like, that was a lot of where, and tell me if I'm wrong, Sam, but it sounds like that's a lot of where you were able to find what it was you were looking for in terms of drugs, right? Weed, acid, pills, whatever it was. I mean, so for you, what did that look like in terms of, or I'm sorry, AJ, what does that look like for somebody newly sober who, you know, is kind of going back into that same environment? Like, what would be your suggestion, kind of as a counselor, for somebody going through that to help them through that?
Right. Well, I mean, and that's where Full Circle really was created and born, was because of a partnership with a Catholic high school out here in Arizona, having a zero tolerance policy for drugs and alcohol. But instead of expelling the kid, Father John, the executive director, the priest at Mount Carmel, kind of stepped in and ultimately created a support system in the school. So if a kid was struggling with drugs and alcohol, they could go to the support system if they chose to participate in it and stay sober, then they could stay in school, which was a big deal. Obviously, the idea wasn't to rip somebody out of their education, but the reality is that, yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. It's not a, oh, schools are bad, they have drugs. It's like, no, it's just that there's tons of drugs floating around all over the place, and there happens to be uh, this place called school where a bunch of them gather and go. And I mean, just, obviously there's a reality to tons of teenagers are, going to school with the kid next door who they get high with after school anyway. And that's kind of the natural progression, right? Is it starts off as this, oh, we'll get high on the weekends. Okay, after a month or two of that, I'm going to start putting a little bit of my weekend into my week and start getting high before school. And I don't know. I mean, there's definitely that. I think one of the mentalities that young people have is, well, I mean, why study and do all this work to get an A when I can get high and take the test and feel like I got one? I mean, that is the reality of what drugs do to a teenager's psyche. And so I guess my response to it would be, or how to, best prepare somebody for that is there's a lot of parents who choose to look into alternative methods for schooling, whether that's online, if that's a smaller school or charter school, something that can be a little bit more, I think there may be a little bit more accountability in those kind of settings. Again, the plan would obviously never be to remove education from that or for that to not be in the picture, but it is very, very hard for a young person going back to school newly sober. I mean, that's difficult for anybody when you take chemicals out of your body after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, everything that you all of the reasons that you got high are coming to the surface. All of those emotional, uh, things that were going on with you that kind of, laid beneath the surface are all rising to the top. And so those are the biggest things that you're trying to recover from anyway, is, okay, well, what tools do I need, or what tools can I get to be able to deal with life on life's terms? And then for a young person who's just now figuring that out, going back to somewhere where, I mean, it really is kind of just getting hammered, and like Sam was saying, getting offered stuff, and some of it, if you've already built that reputation as a teenager, it's really difficult to go back and face those people that you spent every day getting high with. They know who you are, they know your behavior, and all of a sudden you're like this guy who's like, nah, man, I'm good, I don't want that. Well, yeah, I mean, their kind of natural progression is they're going to push a little harder. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want, like, just a week ago you were getting high with us? Like, what's the deal? So I think families just really need to know that I mean, honestly, in the first year of somebody's recovery, it's then when you think about it, it's a lot of firsts. You know, they're learning how to deal with those emotions that are coming up. They're learning how to get earned highs. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about is getting high, taking a pill, taking a drink, smoking a joint. You are immediately given an earned high. I didn't work for it. I didn't do anything to get it. I just smoked a little something, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm on top of the world. Part of the problem for a teenager and their brain development is that starts to train us that, hey, I could just do that every day and feel great. Why do I need to work for anything? Why do I need to study? Why do I need to pick up after myself? Whatever the case may be. And so as they get sober and they recover from those things, one of the things that, and Sam can attest to this, I think that's, you start to really start to build naturally is self-worth. How do I live in a way that I will continue to feel good about myself and grow in my life? And again, as they're facing these other obstacles, schooling, the temptation that comes from, maybe some of the people there, it just makes it harder. And so, I mean, that's one of those things, again, that we try to communicate with parents is just be aware of this. This is something that, again, we're not trying to say don't, uh, education's not important, but the fact that first things first, your kid really does have to to get a solid foundation for them to stay sober, so that they can really have the tools that they need to face those life on life terms, to face those realities. Because we all know that, 25 years old, you're going to go to a restaurant where they serve alcohol. You're going to, walk around the block and, you're probably going to smell weed, especially depending on the state you live in. So there's just a reality to, it's life on life terms. We're going to have to face those things. But for a young person, especially in early recovery, it's more important to me that they get the tools they need to go deal with those things. And I think that's what we've seen schools be more and more successful when they're supporting the young person in that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think even getting to do this kind of back and forth panel discussion and all of that is just awesome, right? Like just a real deal. Okay, so here is kind of straight from the horse's mouth, right? Like somebody who got sober in high school and all of that. And so, Sam, going back to you, the next question I'll ask is, again, you've got a year and a half sober, things are going really well. Do you still struggle today? And if you do, like, what is your strategy to kind of stay on the right track, continue to stay sober? Like, so, is it still something that, truly it's kind of gone away, or do you still have those moments where, getting high would be awesome?
Yeah, I still struggle. I mean, I don't think that feeling, I don't really know if that'll ever go away. I think it will be something that happens in my life. Like, thinking about it, like I could go get high right now in like 20 minutes. That's how easy it would be for me. And it's like, do I want to take a 20-minute time out of my day to go do that? Or should I take like the entire day to make myself feel good? It's like, it's kind of like what AJ was saying about life on life's terms. Like, I really take that to heart most of the time. And it's like, people get high, like that's a thing that happens. Like, that's something that's going to be unavoidable no matter what. And it's like, that's what normal people do. Like, normal people drink alcohol. Like, that's something that happens, and it's something that'll be around eventually, and something that'll be around quite often. And it's like, it's always going to be in the back of my head. And I think the best thing that really helps me deal with that is the fact that, like, this really is better than getting high. And if it wasn't better than getting high, I'd be getting high right now. And it's like, instead of like having one cookie now or like 100 cookies later, I'm going to have the 100 cookies later instead of the one cookie now. Like, that's just kind of how I think about it. And it's like, sure, with the whole quarantine thing, like I've been thinking, like, I've had thoughts of like, oh, I could easily get high right now, and it would, like, nobody would ever know because like we're not hanging out with the group as much, and like nobody would ever know if I did it. And it's like, having that thought, and it kind of goes to my head, and like I get this moment of like clarity and sanity where it's like, no, like that's not where it is. Like, that's not like what I need to be doing. And I know it sounds cheesy and kind of like overspread a lot, and I don't want kids that are thinking about coming into this program thinking about like worrying about this too much. But like, I pretty much owe it all to like God and my higher power, just like really helping me stay sane and helping me get through this, because like that's really what I attribute most of that to.
Gotcha. So this will be a question for both of you, and Sam, you can answer first, and then AJ after, and and then we'll start to wrap it up. I'll have one other question after that. But so, what would you both say, or what advice would you give to somebody who is either really struggling and doesn't know where to turn, or somebody who's reluctant to seek help but probably needs it?
Well, I think about that a lot too, because like, just with the things that I do, like even like without the group, like the people that I hang out with, like, or situations that I'll find myself in with people that still get high or people that might have a problem, is kind of like, I really think about it as like what I would say to them normally is like, if you ever have like any doubt in your mind that this is not what you want to be doing with your life, then you have to at least go to one meeting, go to something, like talk to somebody who has experience getting sober, or like has had like drug issues in the past, like talk to somebody who really knows you well in that kind of way. And like kind of what I'm gonna say about that is like my whole like mission now is to give back to the program that gave me so much. Um and I think about it as like the way I can give back is by helping people in the program and helping bring people to the program. Um and really, if like the thought ever comes into your head that okay, this probably isn't what I need, then like you have to go check it out. Um that's all
Awesome.
I have to
Thank
Yeah, going back to something we touched on earlier that, a lot of people and especially parents, I think, can see this as, oh, they're experimenting and it'll be fine. It's a phase. I think that's one of the things that I like to touch on, and I guess with this question is, you know, someone who continues to get high is no longer experimenting. The experiment was a success. That's why they continue to get high. And I think if we think about that for a moment, it's that, I think too often people look at it as, they have to hit rock bottom to make a decision to do that. Or if they hit rock bottom, that'll force them into recovery. Or, I think a parent can struggle with that too. Okay, when's enough, or what's too much or too far? And I mean, I think the reality, like we were talking about earlier, is, that the idea that I can take a chemical and change how I feel completely and change my perception, there's truly something wrong with that, because there's the thought process is that I don't like me for me. I want to be somebody else or somewhere else, or I want to feel something else. Therefore, kind of, I think you have to come back to, okay, there's something going on with me that I don't like. And so to me, that in itself is enough of a reason, a good enough reason to come back and go, okay, what's the deal? What is that? What do I not like about me? Or if it's a parent going, okay, my kids really seems like they're not being themselves. They're really struggling, or, they're kind of having these behaviors that aren't really normal. And it's always worth, again, checking it out, going to some sort of counseling, getting them in for some kind of to visit, or just as a family, like having that conversation, like, man, I'm really worried about you. These are some of the things I've seen. Like, is there anything that's going on? Is there anything we can do to support you? Is there something else going on? So I guess that's the biggest thing I want to talk about for parents is do your best to absolutely have that dialogue open, that it should be, your kids should know they can come to you and really discuss that stuff. That, you can be the lighthouse for your kids in that way. And then for a teenager or a young person who's struggling, I think the reality is, it's, being able to tell them, look, like a lot of the people that work for us, and obviously the people that are in the program, have been where you are. And, not, there is a reality to that we all really liked getting high. That was our solution. That is part of the problem. And being able to relate with them in that way that, but if you really will play the tape all the way out, like, where do you see this going in a year? Where do you see this going in 2 years? Most of the time you really can get them to use logic to kind of go, okay, yeah, I really can see that the things that I've said I would never do, I've started to do. Lines that I said I wouldn't cross, I've crossed. Motivations and things that I were looking forward to, I no longer look forward to. And if you can really help a young person see that and kind of get there for themselves, then it really does help them kind of make the decision of like, okay, maybe I can have something better. It's not about you need to be fixed. It's just like clearly this, this is leading you down a path that you didn't really set out to go down.
Absolutely. Well, so the last question I'll ask, and obviously all three of us being in, recovery and having gotten sober ourselves young and all of that, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I could probably speak for both of you too. But if I had, come across a video like this when I was still using, I A, probably wouldn't have wanted to watch it, right? And B, probably would have been a little bit suspicious of it, right? So, the people that I think are watching it are probably people who are concerned about something, right? Whether that's a friend, whether that's a parent, all of that. So what do you say to somebody who, and this will be the last question, but what do you say to somebody, or how can somebody help who is concerned about somebody that is struggling or that is using, and what do you think the best thing is that they can really do? Maybe not necessarily from a parent's perspective, since you touched on that, AJ, but from, a peer perspective. What can they do for that person?
I think like mainly coming at it like with love and coming at it like as like a true friend, because like if you're like a real friend of this person, like if you notice that they're having problems and struggling, like you are gonna want to ask what's going on with them. And it's like with me, like the friends that I had all got high. I didn't have really friends that like didn't get high that I was really close with, and it was kind of just like, so nobody knew that I was really screwing up besides like the people that saw me from the outside, but like the people that I
Right.
was like out with would like see me as somebody who would um just get high and have a good time kind of thing. And it wasn't and like those people really never helped me, and it like it kind of just like what I would have liked to been told is that like I'm gonna have your back through this. Like if you need anything, talk to me kind of thing, like stuff like that. And it's like really just like helping them get help is a really difficult thing to do. And um even as like me helping like my friends that I used to get high with get sober, like I think the hardest thing is really getting them to really check it out and like um having that kind of like, because like really what really made me want to stay was is that it's better than getting high, and that there were people in the program that wanted what I have, or wanted what other way around, what I wanted what they have. um so like that's pretty much was all that really kept me in the program like originally. And it's like really helping your friend out with that, as like saying like, well, like having them look at these people and say, these aren't two old guys and a high school kid that are like telling you to stop using drugs. These are people that are really here to help you. And it's like, we're not here to like push some crazy like religious belief onto you or anything like that. It's like, we're here to help you. And like, we're here to like help you find out who you are as a person and help you really become the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Nice. I don't think I'm that old, but I'll let it slide.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying as like, kids, you got these two old guys telling you that you can't get out anymore.
No, I'm still hip, dude. AJ, what do you think?
I'm pretty young too, though. I'm just double your age, Sam. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, well, and this was part of my experience, as Nick touched on. We all got sober young. I mean, that's part of our story, part of our strengths and why we do what we do as well. But one of my best friends that I grew up with, that I knew, I mean, since we were in, T-ball together, and lived in the same neighborhood, and really just great kid, great family. And he, somewhere along the way, kind of had made this really hard choice and saw the road that I was going down, and I think really knew that he couldn't participate in it, that it wasn't healthy. It wasn't right for him. It wasn't the most loving action. And, somewhere along the way, he tried to communicate his concern for me. He tried to really tell me that he cared about me and that he was worried about the road I was going down. But at the time, I was, too hard-headed to listen and really just kind of thought he was, um, being lame. Honestly, that was kind of the excuse, right? It was like, whatever, man, you're lame. You don't really get it. You don't know. And I know that he had to make a really hard decision and deciding that he wasn't going to spend time with me anymore. He wasn't going to, really be around me. And notice notice that I didn't say he wasn't going to be my friend, because one of the things that he communicated was, dude, I love you and I care about you and I'm worried about you. And I can't continue to put myself around you if you're going to make these decisions. And this isn't what I want for you. Um, but if you're going to continue to live like that, then I can't really do this anymore. And it was a hard thing. I was really mad at him. I was frustrated at him, and I kind of turned my nose at him, like, dude, who are you to like talk to me like that? But the reality was that he was absolutely taking the most loving action for himself and for me. And it was one of those things that, obviously I got to see, hindsight's 2020. I got to see a little bit later after I got sober that really was one of the coolest gifts that he could have ever given me. But I definitely think for a sibling, for a friend, for a classmate, for whatever, I mean, that really is probably the best way to put it is I think you got to be willing to risk the relationship. And what that means is being honest, being loving, like Sam was talking about, and being willing to risk that relationship, being willing to say that thing that they probably don't want to hear, or that you're scared to say. Man, I don't want to like hurt their feelings or bum them out or anger them or anything like that. But I think it's being willing to have those hard conversations and be that honest with the people that we love and care about. And again, you're not responsible for their decision. You're not responsible for their actions. You really, truly just can um, do what's in your heart. Do what's the most loving action for them and you as a whole. And that's what my friend Casey did for me. Was he absolutely took the most loving action for me and for himself. And sadly, at the time, that meant taking a step back and separating. And but
Yeah.
I tell you today that we're friends and stay connected. And um, it was
Well,
later on after I got sober. Is one of the things we talked about was he asked. He was like, was there anything else I could have done? Was there any more I could have said? And I said, no, you
yeah.
did exactly what you needed to do. And I was really, really grateful for that. Obviously at the time I was angry and whatever, but really grateful for his friendship.
Yeah. Well, and I think, this is the last piece that I'll add in on all of that. Anybody in recovery, I think, has some version of that, right? Like,
Right.
I more often than not, everybody's got that one person who, they grew up with, they were really, really good friends with. I mean, I had a guy like that. His name was CJ, and he and I are still really, really close best friends to this day. And, we had to take, steps away from each other. It was more him taking steps away from me and all of that. But some of that was because I was pushing him away because I was using and he didn't agree with it. And he didn't, so it is, but those friendships really did mean so much to me because it let me know after the fact, once I had gotten sober, how much they really cared about me, right? It wasn't about, do you have drugs? Do you have money? Can you come hang out and get high with us? It was more about, no, I care about you and your well-being, and I don't believe that this is the right thing. So anyway, look, this has been awesome. Thank you guys for taking time to, put this together with me and, get this sent out to people who might need some help. And, obviously whatever that looks like. But I just wanted to say thank you guys. You guys are awesome, and looking forward to who this can potentially help.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I will. I'll talk with you guys later.
All right.